I was banned from my own family's Christmas party, left standing outside while they celebrated without me. I'm Rachel, and for years I was the invisible one, the quiet support no one truly saw. But what happened next? Well, my secret reign shocked them all, turning the tables in ways no one expected. Want to know how I went from being rejected to taking control of my own story? Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments, and if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way, I can send you a special greeting. Now, let's start the story together. I had just kicked off my boots and slipped out of my scrubs when my phone lit up with Ethan's name. The soft glow from the pine candle flickered beside a neat pile of carefully wrapped gifts, each one a silent testament to my hope that this year might be different. 3 days before Christmas in Seattle, my small apartment was warm and cozy, filled with the familiar scent of pine and cinnamon. But despite the festive atmosphere, a quiet tension hung in the air. I answered the call, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, Ethan." His voice was cautious, almost hesitant, and I could hear the unspoken weight behind his words before he even spoke them. "Rachel, Nina. She's really sensitive to the kind of energy you bring home from the hospital. She says it's just too heavy for the party this year." I blinked, heart sinking as the words settled around me. Nina was his girlfriend, someone new in the family circle, and suddenly my presence was the problem. I didn't say anything. I let the silence fill the space between us. Before I could find a reply, my phone rang again. It was Mom. Carol's voice was sweet, but there was a steel underneath it that I'd known too well. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "we just want peace this year. You know how sensitive Nina is. Maybe it's best if you take a break from Christmas." A pause. My fingers tightened around the phone. "If you show up, we may not open the door," she added, the words cutting sharper than I expected. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, I didn't plead. Instead, I turned my gaze to the small suitcase by the door, already packed with gifts, wrapped in neat paper and a pine green scarf folded on top. The gifts I had chosen carefully, hoping they'd be enough to show I cared, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'd make space for me. But this year, I knew they wouldn't. I sank down beside the softly lit Christmas tree, its blinking lights suddenly dimming in my eyes. The quiet of the apartment wrapped around me, a cold contrast to the warmth I had tried to bring. I opened my laptop slowly, the glow illuminating my face, and hesitated with my fingers hovering over the banking app. The exhaustion beneath my calm was real. For so long, I had carried the weight of being the reliable one, the one who showed up, who kept the peace, who sacrificed silently. But tonight, as snow fell softly outside my window, I faced a new truth. Sometimes, showing up isn't enough, and sometimes the silence you hold speaks louder than any words ever could. They didn't slam the door. I just wasn't allowed to knock. That sentence played over and over in my mind as I sat alone in my apartment late that night. The snow had started falling softly outside, blanketing the city in quiet white, and the blinking lights of the Christmas tree cast gentle shadows on the walls. The warmth of the room was a stark contrast to the cold isolation I felt inside. I pulled out my laptop and stared at the banking app, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigated to my automatic payments. One by one, I canceled the mortgage payments I had been sending to my parents for years, payments I had made quietly without complaint to keep the roof over their heads. Next, I froze the financial assistance I had been providing Ethan for his freelance art projects, the ones he never seemed to finish but always needed funding to start. A long list formed in my mind: the unpaid debts, the favors, the emergency car repairs, surprise medical bills, all patched together silently by me, the family's invisible caretaker. It was exhausting to think how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed, while being barely acknowledged. Memories surfaced sharply. I remembered the day I got accepted into med school. I brought home the letter like a trophy, my heart full of hope. But Mom had only glanced at it, muttering, "That's intense. Just don't lose yourself in it," before turning back to her chopping board. No celebration, no pride. Meanwhile, Ethan's failures were celebrated like grand achievements. His spray-painted garage wall called Passion Art, a party thrown when he dropped out of school to chase his dreams. It was unfair, but that was the pattern. I glanced over at the Christmas tree and took a deep breath. Slowly, I reached out and unplugged the lights. The soft glow faded, and the room dimmed. The symbolism was not lost on me. This was the end of my invisible labor, the quiet work done to keep a fragile peace. "I'm not angry," I whispered to the empty room. "I'm just done." The snow outside thickened, muffling the sounds of the city. I wrapped my hands around a warm cup of tea, the steam rising like a quiet comfort. The weight I had carried for so long felt lighter now, replaced by a silent resolve. I was no longer the family's invisible support, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to care for myself first. I hadn't shown up for Christmas, but somehow I still ruined it. The thought echoed through my quiet apartment as I sat alone that night. The city's festive lights twinkled beyond my window, but inside, silence was all I had. No calls, no texts from family, not even a single message from Ethan or Mom. It was as if I'd vanished from their world. Then my phone rang. Aunt Valerie's name flashed on the screen. She was the one person who still saw me, the one who had never given up. When I answered, her voice was gentle but tense. "Rachel," she began, "I don't want to upset you, but they're saying you ruined the party." I blinked, confusion and hurt twisting inside me. "Ruined the party? How?" I asked softly. "Well, Nina noticed your photo on the wall," she explained. "She asked who you were. That set off a whole thing." Aunt Valerie paused, then continued. "There was this awkward silence. No one wanted to talk about you, but Nina was persistent." Across town, the Linwood family's Christmas party was in full swing. I imagined Nina standing there, curious and unaware of the storm she was about to stir. She had always been straightforward, the kind of person who didn't shy away from questions. Seeing my picture, me, the sister they had quietly sidelined, she had asked about my work. Nina's voice had cut through the festive chatter. "Is that Rachel? The doctor who cared for my neighbor's grandmother through her final days?" The room had gone still. Family members exchanged uneasy glances, their smiles fading under the weight of the question. No one spoke. The truth, long hidden, suddenly demanded attention. Nina didn't wait for answers. She left the party abruptly, her departure as sudden as the ripple she had created. Later that night, she posted a heartfelt message online, words that echoed in my heart. "Families rewrite stories to fit prettier versions. Silence erases people, but the truth finds a way to be heard." Her post spread quickly among family, friends, and acquaintances. Gossip blossomed, questions arose, and for the first time in years, my name was spoken aloud, not as a shadow, but with respect and acknowledgement. Just as I was beginning to absorb this fragile victory, my phone buzzed with a new email. The subject line read, "Let's reset things." It was from Ethan. The silence in my apartment felt heavier now, charged with the promise of confrontation and change. The ripples had begun, and there was no turning back. They said they missed me, but what they really missed was control. The subject line of Ethan's email glared at me from the screen. "Let's reset things." I stared at those words, feeling the weight of history pressing down on me. It was the same old story wrapped up in polished language and empty promises. A well-crafted message meant to smooth over cracks, not to mend what was truly broken. The morning light filtered softly through my apartment window, casting a pale glow over the room. Outside, Seattle was gray and cold, the kind of January day that made you want to stay wrapped in a blanket. Inside, the quiet was thick, broken only by the occasional ping of my phone. I clicked open the email and read slowly. The message spoke of family values and healing, a desire to come together after the holidays' chaos. It was careful, bland, and utterly devoid of real remorse. Buried in the middle was the real request. Would I please reach out to Nina to help smooth things over? Their priorities were clear, not about me, but about keeping their image intact. I felt a bitter smile tug at my lips. I knew exactly what this was. A transaction disguised as an apology, the kind of message meant to pull me back into a drama where I had no power, only the expectation to forgive and forget. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Valerie popped up. "Hold your ground, Rachel. They'll come around when they see you won't be pushed." Her words were a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone in this. I printed the email, the paper cool and crisp in my hands. Folding it carefully, I slipped it into a drawer labeled unsent. I wasn't ready to reply, not now, maybe not ever. Then, without warning, a sharp knock echoed through my apartment. My heart skipped a beat. I moved cautiously to the door and peered through the peephole. There they were, Mom, Dad, Ethan, standing there bundled in winter coats, their faces a mixture of hope and desperation. The weight of choice pressed heavy against me. Would I open the door to the past, or would I keep it closed, guarding the fragile peace I'd finally found? I stepped back, my breath catching as I prepared for what would come next. They stood on my porch like a family photo, smiles thin and eyes full of rehearsed regret. It was a snowy Sunday afternoon in January, the kind of quiet that makes every sound seem louder. I watched them from behind the glass, their faces hopeful yet weighed down by unspoken apologies. I remembered the day I got accepted into med school. The hope mingled with fear that coursed through me then. This moment, I knew, would be very different. I opened the door just enough to let the cold air slip through, a small crack between us. Carol stepped forward first, her voice soft and measured, like a rehearsed line. "Rachel, we love you. We just want to talk," she said, clutching her purse tightly as if it contained all the right words. Greg's expression was tighter, frustration barely hidden beneath his calm facade. "Things got out of hand," he added, his tone edged with irritation. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside them, silent, avoiding my gaze. I listened quietly, feeling the weight of their presence and the years of hurt that hung between us. Then, without hesitation, I replied with a single word, clear, calm, and resolute. "No." Their faces faltered, surprise flickering across them like a shadow passing. I didn't soften or explain. I simply closed the door gently, cutting off the conversation, but not the pain. "You taught me that love was something I had to earn," I whispered to myself as the door clicked shut. "I'm done proving." Back inside, the warmth of my apartment enveloped me, but my heart was still heavy. I sat down at my desk and stared at Nina's unopened letter resting there, a reminder of the connection I still cherished, even as I closed the door on the past. No grand gestures, no loud victories, just a quiet letter and morning sunlight filtering softly through the curtains of my apartment. It was late January, and the world outside was still wrapped in the muted colors of winter, but inside, a gentle light flickered, a new kind of warmth that had nothing to do with the seasons or the festive decorations long since packed away. The pine candle I'd once burned with hope had long since melted into memory, but something else glowed steady within me. I held Nina's handwritten letter in my hands, the ink slightly smudged around the edges, a testament to her sincerity. She wrote about her grandmother, how I had stayed past visiting hours, treating her not just as a patient, but as a person deserving of dignity and joy, even in her final days. I read the letter slowly, letting each word settle. This wasn't about family grudges or silent exclusions. This was real. This was impact. I framed the letter and placed it on my desk where the morning sun could touch it, a reminder of the difference I had made when it mattered most. At work, Mark Hastings, the hospital director, stopped by my office with a quiet smile. "Nina's post is getting some attention," he said. "People are starting to see the real story behind the family drama." His words were a balm, a small but meaningful recognition beyond the walls of my apartment and the shadows of my past. I spent the afternoon tending to my patients with a calm I hadn't known I could carry. There were no demands, no expectations, just moments of connection, compassion, and presence. The weight of family silence no longer pressed down on me. Instead, I found myself fully here, fully seen, and most importantly, fully enough. As the day waned, I sat quietly by the window, watching the light fade and thinking, I didn't need to be seen by them anymore. I was finally enough for myself. As the morning sunlight gently touched my apartment, I realized that true peace doesn't come from being seen by others. It comes from accepting yourself. Family can be complicated, and sometimes the hardest love is learning to let go of expectations that no longer serve us. If we remember to care for one another with kindness and patience, even through silence and distance, love finds its way back in unexpected forms. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please feel free to share or follow along for more stories that remind us all of the quiet strength within.